51% of the rise in prices came from increased profits. If you bring profits down to normal historical levels, you cut the inflation rate in half.
Really quick, I wanted to touch on this. I wanted to hit this story first before we get into our interview with the workers from the VA about their new tentative agreement. And that's this, the story about inflation has continued to be a relevant story in the headlines as inflation continues to, affect working people. The thing that a lot of folks don't tell you is that inflation is easing. And it's important to understand that, not to say that, oh, okay, it's easing now, we shouldn't be doing anything to tackle it anymore. Of course, there are more things to be done, because inflation sitting at 5 to 6% is still a lot more than it needs to be, especially when wages are only rising at 3 to 4%, right? So it's still difficult, but it's, 5 to 6% inflation is a lot different than 10% inflation. And it's important to recognize that, because if you don't recognize that, then you get the justifications for the Federal Reserve continuing to raise interest rates like they did last week. And the raising of interest rates is specifically the mechanically and logistically what that does is it makes it more expensive for businesses and workers to borrow money. Makes it more expensive for businesses to borrow money, and that will make them less likely to hire more workers. It will make them less likely to give raises. When it costs workers more to borrow money, it makes us less likely to buy houses. I know that if the interest rates were what they were 2 years ago, I would be a homeowner right now. I absolutely would be, because I saved up with a specific purpose for a whole year of buying a house. And then all of a sudden the interest rates skyrocket and my monthly payment would be, while putting 20% down, like $300 or $400 a month more than it would have been if I had put 3% down 2 years ago, right? So so what happens if we don't buy houses? Well, less houses get built. Increasing the interest rate, the explicit purpose is to quote unquote cool the economy. Quote unquote cool the economy. And it's specifically aimed at attacking wage growth. Specifically because of all of the causes of inflation. You got to think about all the causes of inflation. The war in Ukraine, supply chain shocks, the labor shortage, all of this type of stuff, all the work that needs to be done that is not being done because we don't have the money to pay people. None of those things are going to be attacked by increasing interest rates. None of them. Increasing interest rates isn't going to stop the war in Ukraine. Increasing interest rates isn't going to bring the price of gas down, but it will decrease wages. It will increase unemployment. And they just did it again last week, despite the fact that inflation has outstripped wage growth, according to the New York Times in an article published yesterday, for 22 consecutive months. And that's not inflation has outstripped wage growth for 22 consecutive months. That's not coming from some lib think tank. That's coming from economists at JP Morgan. Okay? This is coming from the banking sector. They recognize this. That's just a fact. Inflation has outstripped wage growth. And so, therefore, wage growth can obviously not be the primary cause of inflation. In fact, just a year ago, analysis by multiple people, multiple studies showed that actually, in fact, profits accounted for 51% of the rise in prices.
Yeah, those 2% raises that they were giving out, I don't think that was causing the... They always want to find a way to blame a worker, huh?
It's
like
insane. And so according to the Federal Reserve's projections, with their increased interest rate hikes, inflation will drop to between 3 and 4% by the end of the year, accompanied by a jump in unemployment to 4.5% from 3.6% today. That is a loss. Their goal, this is what they are going for, is a loss of 1 to 2 million jobs. 1 to 2 million jobs that originally Trump appointed Jerome Powell and then Biden reappointed Jerome Powell is aiming for. And the Fed is also projecting economic contraction over the remaining 3 quarters of the year. I mean, it is a war on working people, because working people, they think, amazingly, have it too good. This is what the people who run our society think about us. They think that we have it too good, and that instead of attacking profits, instead of saying that the people at the top, who, again, according to analysis, 51% of the rise in prices came from profits, increased profits. 51% of the rise in prices. That means if you bring profits down to normal historical levels, you actually cut the inflation rate in half. In half. Just by doing that, just by bringing profits to the historical norm. But they want to bring wages down instead of doing that. It's crazy. It's crazy. Jerome Powell needs to be fired. Biden needs to fire Jerome Powell and get somebody else in there, somebody who is not intent on destroying working people.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.